Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host, the voice of Fate, as it were. I am looking forward to our show tonight. It is a topic that has fascinated me for years. I am not a scientist. I'm a researcher. I do not fully understand all of physics yet, but I have been working on that for the last several years, and it is something that you can self-teach, especially if you have gurus that are willing to help you. So I appreciate all of mine. I think that y'all are going to get as much enjoyment from this show as I am, because our guest has been researching unified field theory since he was 10. Probably the unified field theory came a little bit after his first exposure, but you know, when your hero has the same birthday as you and lives and then died within 30 miles of you, that's a pretty good draw to want to emulate them, right? Look at all the people that emulate different ghost hunters across the country. But before we get started, I do want to say that I am so appreciative of everyone's support. I know that the Gulf Coast is looking at another storm coming ashore. She's a tropical storm right now, but she is coming off the Yucatan and going to hit the water to build back up over the Gulf. Louisiana, Western Louisiana and East Texas have taken the full brunt of two Category 4, a Category 4 and a Category 3, I think, hurricane. My town took a 3, and everyone saw the devastation through Orange Beach and Pensacola and farther. I just want to keep everybody aware that these people are facing this again. No one should have to do that. Every other year is hard enough. We had Ivan one year with Katrina right behind him. That's too much. I can't imagine the thought of a third one coming for me. So, if you could just please keep them in your thoughts, that would be fantastic. And wherever this thing makes landfall, those people will probably need help because there aren't any dunes to, keep the surges back or anything anymore. So just kind of be aware of that. If you see somebody asking for donations, or if you can just, get something to a local organization in the areas hit, that would be great. Now, before we go one more second, I am going to introduce you to my guest. His name is Mark Fiorentino. He has been truly obsessed with Einstein's unified field theory. He first discovered Einstein when he was 10. The story is very good, and I think that you'll enjoy it. He actually worked for a living in the high-tech industry, and he is one of those people that can troubleshoot those things, so that's pretty amazing to me. And I think you're going to really enjoy everything about him. He has taken a theory that had problems, and the problems were truly not something that... Back in the day, there was a lot of competition among physicists, and this was not the most popular view because other people thought that the matter was wrong, the subject matter was wrong. You're going to love this because it's like a whodunit, kind of, and you know what? The good guy does win in the end. So, hi, Mark. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio.
Hello. I'm happy to be aboard tonight.
I'm so happy you're here. I am looking forward to this conversation because I've already told you I'm kind of a geek for this stuff and have had opportunities to talk with people who research this as well as you. And I'm excited. Most people don't know that I am a closet geek. I love tech stuff. I love toys. And, my research partner outed me a couple of years ago on this stuff. So it is what it is. But would you like to tell people a little bit about, I've heard two stories about what developed your childhood interest in Einstein. So I am interested in that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's two paths that I followed. The spiritual path that kind of guided me to this, and that took 45 years basically to get to the book, and then it took 4 years to write the book. But I started out, basically I'm a Roman Catholic, and I was in catechism class, and I remember the nuns asking if all the students could find a saint that was born on their birthday. And there was no internet back there in 1965. So I asked my parents, did they know of anybody? I had Encyclopedia Britannica, but it's, kind of hard to find any kind of information with just a date like that. And so I went to the calendar and I looked to see if there was anybody famous on my birthday, and sure enough, that was Albert Einstein. So I went back to the Encyclopedia Britannica, opened it up, and I started reading about Einstein. Now, he wasn't a saint, but I figured, now, that's who I'm going to do this report on. It's the only person I could find.
Well, he
And
was not a saint.
no, he got into a little bit of mischief.
Every so often.
Yeah, that's okay. He's a real human being experiencing the human experience.
Absolutely.
I have no problems with his life. I love his life story. And so I read about it, and along with reading about his general ideas, I stumbled over the unified field theory concept in one of the articles there inside of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I remember reading it then and thinking to myself, this really makes sense.
Right.
There's something about it that it fascinates me. I know that's kind of unusual for a 10-year-old, but it's like I was remembering it. Something that I already must have known at some point, and it just seemed so familiar and sensible, and I wanted to know more about it. So from that point on, I had many interests. I developed interests in UFOs and science in general, and so every time I would read something or see something on TV that was science related, I was always looking for anything that might be related to Einstein's unified field theory. So that's the one way the curiosity got me into the Einstein and physics and the study of it. And then many years later, when I was 19, I met up with a psychic who also said something during my reading with her. Back in those days, it was really just a matter of going to have your fortune told, with a bunch of guys, and it was a little adventure we went on in October. And I got a little more than I bargained for in that reading.
Well,
that's the two
that's
ways.
always the good ones, right?
Yeah, well, it was pretty exciting thing that happened. Basically, my reading went in very normal. And, she got everything right, and it was amazing. That's when I first learned that we have spirit guides and everything. It was fascinating. And my friend went in after me, and he had a good reading. And the weird part, or the strange part, actually happens on the trip after we left Casadega here in Florida. We went to Daytona Beach. Teenagers
Wait a minute. You were at Casadega for your reading?
Right.
Get out of town. What a great experience that must have been. Did you know what it was when you went?
I was exposed to it during a class at school at the community college here. The professor was talking about it, and he was saying how weird that place was and strange feeling, and it was. It had a unique feel to it when we pulled into town. It's just kind of in the woods out there, about halfway between Winter Haven and Daytona Beach. It's near Orlando, Lake Mary, actually. And I met the psychic. Her name was Martha McKay, just a sweet little old lady in a quaint little house. And she gave me my reading and the other guy. And then on the way from Casadega to Daytona Beach, Duff, the guy I was with, said, "Hey, that's really pretty amazing what she said about you." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I didn't have anything unusual in my reading. She told me about my future wife and children and my career, and it was standard stuff. She says, "Oh no, someday you're going to be famous. You're going to make a discovery of something important." I said, "Really?" Because the only thing that she said unusual to me was, in the last days of my life, I would be a spiritual teacher. And I thought that was interesting, since I'm not particularly religious at this point, but I just went with it. But so that's the two ways that got me going, because everything after that, every time I had a psychic experience or another medium, that sort of always was lingering in the background as something like some plan I was involved in, which I come to learn everybody has a life plan. And I started to learn about my life plan, but I had no idea that it was going to be about the unified field theory. I always thought as a kid growing up that I would, if I were lucky and I lived long enough, I would read about somebody figuring it out one day and I would finally know. I didn't really ever think that it was going to be me. I thought somebody else would do this. And it's been quite a surprise to find this out.
Well, at some point in time, we're all somebody else.
Yeah. Well, this is, I guess, that time, that last prediction, which comes up many times throughout my life as I go through my life adventure as a young man and now an older man. It's a strange story. It's a strange story and it's obscure, and I understand that, but it is what it is, and here we are.
And I'm so glad you are here. When I was researching you, because I try to know everything I can so I don't get surprised as a rule. Good. But everything I was finding was interesting. But I started going through Google, and I was looking for unified field theory because I wanted to familiarize myself with it a little better and make sure I didn't have any wires crossed so I didn't look like a goober. But there were links that were like, has the unified field theory been solved, and all this other stuff, and everyone was talking about a lost document. And I was like, well, I didn't see anything about a lost document in Mark's information. He did the research himself. So I'm so glad that I did that research, because what you had and what I've read about you is so solid. And that's why I'm so excited about this conversation. But do you know anything about a lost document from Einstein's research? I mean, I know his brain was lost, but...
I was reading about that the other day, and I went all the way through to the end, and it really didn't give me much about what was in that document. I think they found some additional information in, the library over in Israel, that they have all of his stuff. Right. They did find a couple of more pieces of paper that connected to his work with the unified field theory. But I don't know that it really led to any new breakthroughs or ideas. I
didn't find anything that was indicative of that.
Yeah.
I just kept seeing about this lost document that was found, and it never had anything that
No, it just completed a document that had a few pages missing. That's all I could get out of it. Right. I don't know. Didn't know that there was anything more of any significance in that.
I never found anything. And I mean, I was looking because I thought, well, this will be interesting. We can talk about this, which I guess we are. But it was not what I thought it was going to be.
No, so. Einstein's original idea was so rock solid good.
Yes.
I mean, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, what he had in mind, I can sum it up really very simply. The unified field theory really is about electromagnetism and gravity emerged as aspects of a single fundamental field. They're the same thing. They're just different aspects of that field. So what was that single fundamental field? As it turns out, my research uncovered, it was a field called the ether. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am.
But that is the basic field that's out everywhere. It's a quasi-elastic solid. And from that field emerges magnetism. First the electrostatic field. That is the primary field. Then magnetism. And when the electrostatic field moves, the charge moves, that creates magnetism, because magnetism reacts as that charge is moving within the space. The space rotates around the moving charge as it's spinning and going through space. So that's 2/3 of it solved. Maxwell solved that many years before Einstein. So all that was left is to try to figure out a way that electromagnetic particles move that would cause a gravitational field. And that's what he worked on literally to the very last day of his life.
That is just so interesting that something would pique his interest like that. But he was a genius.
Yes.
And that is what genius. That's how you become a genius, is that you have this all intense focus on just the one thing, generally. Mm-hmm. And you work to solve it, and then you move on to the next one thing. And, but he was so close. So
he
close.
Was.
And if that report about the ether not being real wasn't coming out, we probably would have had this then.
Exactly. There was a series of events that happened that really messed everybody up, and it changed the course of history in the world of physics. And it basically sent physicists chasing the rabbit down the hole. And that's where we're at right now. Yes. They're still deep in the hole. And he had the answer. And he he was actually part of the reason things went off course. Mm-hmm. And so in the book, I go through that history. In 1905, I review the Michelson-Morley experiment and what happened there, and how Einstein reacted to that, and how he released special relativity just before the announcement of the Michelson-Morley experiment null result. And basically what happens was he already knew what the answer was, what the experiment results was. He was monitoring it. And so he changed the wording in special relativity to say, I don't really need an ether. This is all going to be all about one system relative to another moving system. And the ether isn't necessary. So he knew that they were going to say the ether is dead because they didn't discover the ether wind in that experiment. So that changed the course in the wrong direction, because that experiment failed to find the ether wind, but it really shouldn't have been interpreted as meaning the ether did not exist.
Right.
But that's what happened. And then things just went downhill from there. Ultimately, in the end, Einstein comes back later on after general relativity and says the ether exists. And so he kind of has to contradict himself, but he just said you can't measure your speed relative to it, which ultimately I've found is also not true. But things were so messed up by that special relativity, the interpretation is completely incorrect. And I'm going to have a hell of a time convincing everybody to how to fix that and to get it back on course. But
well, quantum right now is sexy.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Einstein fought it, and of course I'm going to have to fight that battle as well.
Well, but it'll be a battle worth fighting, I think.
Well, if we are to advance, and I do want us to advance, I mean, the whole thrust of my work now is to convince everybody I have the solution for the unified field theory. Here it is. Let's get back to classical mechanics. And at the same time, after discovering and understanding gravity, it led me to understanding inertia, led me to understanding the origin of mass. I says, I know exactly how to create a gravitational field, because all gravity is a contraction of space. And I found the origin of that contraction, the mechanical process that is explained in my book. So now,
which, by the way, is titled Master of Reality, Super-Relativity - the Unified Field Theory.
Yeah,
so,
.com.
Just so that you have that.
Yes, I keep forgetting, and a friend of mine told me, hey, you can't just say your book, you got to say Master of the Reality. Thank you for saying that.
Well, got to sell a book.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the point here. Enough people have to read this for it to gain popularity and understanding. So hopefully there will be some physicists out there that say, hey, this really does make sense and does have some formulas here. There's solutions. There's others that can be generated here. We could do the rest of the work that he's suggesting that needs to be done, and we could be back on track. And that's what I'm hoping is going to happen. But I'm on the adventure now. We are on the adventure tonight, so
we are.
We're gonna do our best to drive home the point. And what I was basically going to say is that since I figured out gravity, I know how to do anti-gravity. I know how to make it now. And I got that information from years of research studying UFOs. And I was able, with my theory, to say, well, if gravity is a contraction of space, then all we have to do is cause space to expand.
Yep.
And it's actually quite simple how that is done.
Well, we missed our break because I was so excited. So I wanted to ask you with the ether.
Mm-hmm.
It does exist. So,
yes.
But does that equate to dark matter, dark energy?
No, I believe my opinion on those two is they're going to be proven not to exist. Or dark matter certainly is going to wind up being matter that it's not shining because it goes into my cosmology theory of how the universe was born, which is significantly different than the Big Bang explanation. It is still a Big Bang, but the contents that come out are radically different than what they're thinking actually happened. So the extra mass that we can't see is going to be found in the form of neutronium and neutron stars. Basically, they don't shine when they're in that basic state of existence when there's no gases around them. So I think that's maybe what dark matter is going to turn out to be. There is no mysterious matter other than the matter we know about now. That's what I'm contending. That's basically neutrons, protons, electrons, and quarks inside of the neutron and the proton. That's it. That's all the matter there is. So neutron stars are just neutron matter. So no, I don't think that dark matter and dark energy are mysterious other things. They're not the ether. The ether is just I'm going to hit you with a couple of terms here. It's a low density, high tension, transparent, smooth and continuous quasi-elastic material. So let's go over that. It's low density because if it were high density, and it would be translucent or something we might detect more when we're moving through it. High tension, it's obvious it's high tension because the speed of light is so fast. It's like and the speed of light is a vibration. When you pluck it, a string on a guitar, it vibrates. And when you increase the tension, the sound gets higher and the frequency becomes higher. So the speed of light is incredibly high. The frequency is high. So that stuff, whatever it is that the photon is going through, is very tense. Of course, we know it's transparent, and it has to be, or else we wouldn't be able to see light from a distance. The light from the sun would be attenuated, and we wouldn't have life in this universe. So the very important point is it's smooth and continuous, and that is the basic definition of a solid, something that is continuous. There's no gaps in this stuff. It's a solid, a pure solid. And what does quasi-elastic mean? It means that when you bend it and you let it go, you remove the force that bends it, it just snaps back into place. And that's basically what it is. And everything is made from that substance. All matter and energy are in it. As Einstein once said, he argued that if one believed wholeheartedly in the basic idea of a field theory, matter should enter not as an interloper, but as an honest part of the field itself. I am saying the exact same thing. I'm agreeing with him, and that's what he always worked on. So it's important that we get the ether back on board and start working with it and designing formulas that deal with that substance.
Well, what? Okay. April in chat said, so you believe the ether does exist, and she's always felt it did herself. Does science agree with that now?
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
No. It's taboo. It's really not liked because the quantum theory really says, see, this was a problem that's been around for a long time, ever since James Clerk Maxwell. There was the two schools of thought. The ether theory that I just described, where particles, matter, and energy are within the substance and made up of the substance. And then there's the isolated atom moving through the void theory, or the particle moving through the void. And each particle is its own field in itself, not bound to any other field or anything like that. And that's the scheme we're in now. So quantum theory is all about particle-to-particle interaction.
Right.
And the standard model is a particle-to-particle interaction model. And so forces are thought to be coming from these interactions. But that model is going to turn out to be wrong. My model, Einstein's model, is a particle-to-space interaction. That's how it really works. It's what's going on in between the particles that's important. And particles are
creating gravity for the particles, right?
Yeah, gravity is a bending of space. It's a contraction of space. And so the force, action at a distance, results as various tensions and stresses within the ether that can cause attraction or repulsion. So it's a simple, really, it's a very basic, simple theory when you really start to peel the layers of onions away and look at it, and then start rebuilding that onion with the layers. It all makes sense. That's the very big difference between Einstein's theory and my theory and quantum theory, because when you get into the nuts and bolts of quantum theory, it doesn't make any sense. Well, so the battle becomes, which is true? Is the universe a thing that doesn't make sense, or is it one that has a logical, sensible, mechanical model?
Well, I do my very best to comprehend quantum physics. I have such trouble with the fact that almost everything in our universe is logical. It's not something that's going to just go off on its own tangent and things will happen or they won't happen, or things are happening at the same time and you're in both. I mean, entanglements blew my mind. But
yeah, I spent many years trying to explain that blasted experiment.
Well, I am a co-founder of a Noetic Sciences research group, and my partner is very into the whole quantum positions. I am too. But I don't get the absolute randomness that people just assume. And, the word, to me, it sounds like the words just blurt out. And then because it's quantum, everybody's all excited about it, so they take it as gospel.
Right, yeah. There's a definite dogma where quantum mechanics is concerned.
And I really am working very hard to find a path to understanding it better. But I don't think there really is one necessarily.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of
matter of
wandering
interpretation.
In the desert with that.
Well, let me help you a little bit.
Appreciate that.
It's a tremendous struggle to understand it, because it really doesn't make sense. Anytime they use one of their many, and one of the ways there's something wrong is there's a lot of interpretations for quantum mechanics, at least, I don't know, 26, 27, 28, maybe more, probably more, different interpretations or explanations of, how particles work and, why these experiments turn out the way they do. And what I've discovered after all this thinking about it, and I've dedicated a lot of time to thinking about it, is basically the mathematics of quantum mechanics is purely, completely based in statistical probabilities.
Theories.
That's it. That's it.
Yes.
And that mathematics you can't use to model things that are real. It can't explain how things work. It never will be able to do that. It's just probabilities and statistics. It should be just left at that. So basically, quantum mechanics can never tell you how things work. That's the theory. That's the theory. That's all it should be. And there should be nothing else. So if you want to figure out the odds of when you smack this particle into this one, what you can get, sure, fine, use quantum mechanics. It's a great mathematical tool to help you solve that particular problem, and it will predict things very accurately. But it's not going to tell you how an individual experiment will work. It can't predict an individual flight of an electron or a photon or anything of that nature. It just simply is ill-suited to the task, and it should not be used for the theory of everything. So the model will collapse under its soft underbelly. It's just...
I'm going to get in so much trouble for this show. I don't care.
It's not going to... eventually I'm going to piss off a lot of physicists, not because I'm trying or I want to, because I have great love and respect for every last one of them.
They're all dedicated, and they've all worked very hard to achieve the goals that they've found.
Yes, but it can't be taken lightly or with any kind of joy to come to the conclusion that you've spent your whole life in a wasted effort on a system that could never really give you the unified field theory. It could never give you the theory of everything. It's just not in it to do it. It's sad, but we need these physicists to be working on really vitally important things like anti-gravity and how to build more efficient power supply systems that we'll need for these spaceships. We need room temperature superconducting wire so we can build the electromagnets. This stuff needs to be developed, although I have a sneaking suspicion privately under the works of the United States government they might have solved these problems already for all I know. But if they haven't, I certainly would like to help get the ball rolling, solve them so that we can have anti-gravity devices for public use, for transportation everywhere. It's going to save lives. It's going to change the world. I'm trying the best I can to bring that about. So in my book, at the last chapter, I propose an experiment that should settle the argument once and for all, because I predict how to make anti-gravity. And if enough people do this experiment all over the world, case is closed, because neither quantum mechanics or special or general relativity predicts anti-gravity. So either it was the world's luckiest guess or my model is right. I'm sure the model's right. So.
Well, I find that fascinating, because not only do we need it, for transportation, but we need it for further scientific development, for medical use
absolutely.
as well. There's so many things, and it's not something that would be unhealthy,
right?
Because all it is just, moving through the ether, developing the resistance to have the gravity that helps you go the other way to have the anti. So there's nothing there that would be harmful to a human that we know of. There's nothing there that would, even raise red flags, really, if you got to where you were able to consistently apply that.
Right. It's a clean
It's a clean source.
It's a clean movement through space. Mm-hmm. There is to be fair though, I have to bring this up. There's an extremely dangerous way to. Well, let me just start why it's an extremely dangerous way to move.
Okay, you've got about 6 minutes, and I bet it takes that long. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's quickly do it. Well, you use, to move through space, using my theory, the slip wave bias drive, which basically is a magnetic gradient field. And this magnetic gradient field affects the ether in a very special way. It affects the permittivity and permeability of space. It reduces them. And when you reduce these two things, I'm going quickly.
You're okay. You're okay.
When you reduce these two things, you change the maximum speed of light. The speed of light was discovered to be determined by James Clerk Maxwell with the equation C equals 1 over the square root of permeability times permittivity. So if we master these two properties of space, they are properties of space, we can increase the maximum speed of light. Using the spatial bias drive, those properties are modified. Once they are modified, you can go any speed you want through outer space. But the dangerous part is if the slip wave field that surrounds your ship collapses when you're going faster than the speed of light, it is instant death.
Right.
So one has to, and it's because of all the Lorentz transformations, the physicists are going to understand what I'm saying here. The Lorentz transformations then become active. And if you're moving faster than the speed of light, you'll be crushed to a point. Your mass will increase dramatically, lethally, and that will be it for you. So you have to build a spaceship that has a lot of redundancy so that if the field coils collapse, there's a backup that immediately picks up and doesn't let them collapse all the way. You have to stay safe inside of that slip wave field. So there,
like your
I got it
bubble,
out.
right?
Yeah, it's a bubble, exactly. Very good.
Well, I am just so having a great time. But we're going to go ahead and go to our break, and we'll be right back. And y'all come back too, because I don't know if y'all are having as much fun as I am, but I am loving this. And we have more questions in chat, so we will get there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the flip side.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm your host, Kat Thompson, and my guest is Mark Fiorentino. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it perfect. Perfect, yeah.
So, I am having the best time because I just love this stuff. So, we have a question from April, and she would like to know your thoughts on CERN.
Sure. I go to the website, Alana, check it out. But it's CERN is, the great place where they do a lot of particle analysis, exploration, and, trying to confirm things about the standard model and this interaction. And basically, my problem, oh gosh, how am I going to say this without really inflaming people's opinions over there in CERN? It's all about the particle to particle interaction at CERN. And since I think that's the wrong model and the wrong course, I think we're going in a direction that's basically giving us very little, very little value add to further exploration into finding new particles. It's just not that important, because the particle model that I have is you're smacking particles together. You're not really making new particles. What you're doing is deforming the particles that already exist into other types of particles by smashing them, and you're causing stresses and transformations to the particles you're smashing together, which either cause them to fragment or to become temporarily a different shape and size and energy level. So it's not really that particles, they're discovering new particles. They're just taking the particles they have, causing them to fragment and to become different shapes at times. And they're giving them names as if they're discrete new entities. Mm-hmm. And they're not really. They're just this different versions of the same basic set of particles we have: electrons, positrons, quarks, and so forth. They got all these different types of quarks: strange quark, charm quark, top. These quarks are nothing more than the up and down quark in a stress state caused by, massive interference. And so the measurements they make on them are going to be wrong because they're out of state. When you hit something, you smash it, you're changing its velocity, its angular momentum, you're changing everything. You can't, measure it then and say, well, that's what this is now, because it's a distortion. And within milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds, it converts back always to some fundamental particle. That's what we should be concentrating on, the fundamental particles. Making new ones and then getting the Nobel Prize for that is really not, it's fun for the physicists to, work up a quantum mechanics theory, a model, and then come up with a new particle that they can do by smacking them together. But it's like, no, it's not a good idea. We're wasting resources and time, personal people resources, equipment resources, pursuing something that's have very little diminishing value to the world. We should be working back where Einstein was working, back on this theory that I have now. And that's my feelings on CERN. I love those guys. I admire the hard work they do and what they're doing, but it's the wrong course. It's the wrong direction.
Well, I was curious about what your answer was going to be. I'm always concerned that they're going to do something to a space-time continuum and nobody's going to know, and then done.
Right. Create a black hole or something like that.
Well, that or just time slips.
Oh.
If you're messing with things that are not fully understood, if you have the possibility to create a black hole, then I would think that the ability to create other things would be boundless.
If they really, I don't know why they would. Well, maybe if they can contain the black hole, they
Who wants
could
to take
do
that
it.
chance, though?
Yeah, I don't know that they could contain it. I think it is possible if you crash two neutrons together hard enough. It might work. But if you're worried about the time stuff, you've got great concerns, but it's not at CERN that you have to worry about. It's about with the United States government and their Stargate technology, which is in the second to last chapter of my book.
Yes, we were going to talk about that.
That's where the time slip problems are occurring.
Well, but Stargate is not a new project.
No, yeah, it started with the Philadelphia experiment,
right,
and then moved on to a Montauk project. But those were projects, they kind of stumbled over the way to create time slips and movements of teleportation of matter and so forth using magnetic resonant fields. That's old technology. That's long gone. They don't even use that stuff. This range is limited. They have a whole new technology that I explain in detail in the book using fractal lenses. It's a lot of stuff, but it's in the book. But I had to research that and make some discoveries there and try to design it on my own from my limited knowledge in that area. So yeah, there's a concern, but I don't think CERN is, not that I know of, can do that kind of stuff. It takes a different type of radiation that's generated, electromagnetic radiation that's generated using metamaterials, which CERN doesn't use.
Okay. Well, since you brought up metamaterials, I am so curious because ostensibly there is a new metal that's not necessarily new. Linda Moulton Howe has had it for years and just released it to, I think it was to TTSA, but it's supposedly metal that came off of a crashed vehicle from Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, the makeup of it is interesting. My husband is a machinist, so when she was describing that, it caught my eye or my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, why don't people just come out and say, we need to check this material out? So, you know what? We do know that there were crash sites. You know, there was one in Texas in the 1800s, and then Roswell, yeah, you caught us. And, you know, then we've had these other things. So we're going to utilize these materials to see if we can make something so that we can go and see what's out there too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is this such a dramatic secret?
It's simple. I got an answer to that one too.
I knew you would.
Yeah. Well, anti-gravity and metamaterials, we'll just keep metamaterials separate for right now, but
okay.
The whole technology of anti-gravity and interstellar space flight and all that stuff, all that is being kept secret because it gives the United States of America strategic military advantage. It's just that simple.
Well, not if everybody else knows about it and has it, because the Nazis were using it, for goodness sake.
But they don't know about how to make anti-gravity. I think pretty much USA leads the way, possibly China too. They may have that now. And so there could be two countries that have the flying saucer, but the metamaterial, do you know why? It does not surprise me in the least that UFO spacecraft, their outer hull is made of a metamaterial. It makes perfect sense to use metamaterials to build an interstellar spacecraft. And why is that? The simple reason is that metamaterials control within them, the way they're constructed, they control the permittivity and permeability of space. Remember those words that we went over a little while ago. Mm-hmm. They can, in theory, and I've read articles about material scientists, they're on websites, they're posting research in journals and ResearchGate and places like that, where the permittivity and permeability has been reduced to zero. And that's really handy if you're a space. Yeah, if you're a spaceship and the material of your hull has a zero permittivity and permeability, it's going to slip through space without any friction or limitation at all. Even if the field drops, that outer hull should, in theory, stay intact. I don't know about the atoms on the outskirts of that material. I worry about those. But within that material, it won't contract because the space, the ether in that area has zero permittivity and zero permeability. So what we use that for now is if you shoot photons through that stuff, they're claiming those photons move infinitely fast. And there's articles out there that shocks physicists. I've tried to talk to people about it on Quora and stuff, and, oh, that's not true. That can't be. Well, yeah, go read it yourself. It's your buddies that are claiming this. I'm just reporting on it. And I'm curious about it because it's a nifty thing to be able to do. So, yeah, it does not surprise me that metamaterials are what aliens use to build their starships. It makes perfect sense.
Well, I'm just fascinated by that because the metals that were combined and it's layered. Mm-hmm. It's not a solid substance; it's a layered substance.
That's right.
And so I'm sitting there looking at this piece of metal in their hands and just watching it on TV, right? I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at the strength of that. Because I know that in our case, we create products that, we have metal that we clean and adhere a sprayed powdered metal to. And it is so much stronger than the original metal. And the more layers that you put on that, the more strong it is. Mm-hmm. As long as you do it properly.
Right.
And I find that fascinating. It's one of my favorite things my husband does. And I think it's just neat to see. But
I'm impressed that you know about the metamaterials. There's not a whole lot of people that even know about that. So when I see something on TV that mentions a UFO show or something that mentions metamaterial, I get excited because, that makes perfect sense to build your starship out of that.
And we already do that, for protecting metal sheaves and sleeves and things of that nature.
So it has other good material qualities and stuff that are very useful for building things. So that's good to know. I didn't know much about that. All I know is the one particular property that I find very useful, which is the reduction of permeability and permittivity. But you're telling me about a whole bunch of new stuff, so that's good to know.
But that technology here is not new. The powdered metal, you just take it down. I don't even understand why it is so much stronger, but I think it's because the metal that you're applying to the clean, smooth metal it's already been stressed. It's already been through processes that strengthened it through the stress. And so once you apply it to the other metal, then it's tougher than the original stainless or whatever you're using.
Is your husband a material scientist?
No, my husband's a machinist and a dadgum good one too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know the details of a material scientist would know more about what you're talking about.
Well, he might know, but I've just never asked.
Yeah, if he studied it, he would know. But I haven't studied it in that much detail. I don't know of all the I don't know of all the extra qualities and properties that can be affected by building metal in this way. I haven't really studied it to that detail, but it's an important clue.
It is.
It's just another clue that leads us to figuring out how to build starships.
Another clue to another clue, as the dad said in National Treasure. Just another clue that's going to take you to another clue. But eventually you get there. But we are at our top of the hour news break, and this is a great time to fill your beverage container, to do a few little limbo things and get loose and come back for our second hour, which is going to be even better, if that's possible. So thank you so much for joining us here on Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and I look forward to the next. See you then. And you know what? This is a news break. I am ever hopeful. I am holding out for good news. Let's hope we get some tonight. We'll be back.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Amazon. In the last 6 months, schools, essential businesses, and frontline healthcare facilities relied on Amazon to purchase over 200 million critical safety supplies. Go to amazon.com/care for more.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. The top aide to Vice President Mike Pence has tested positive for the coronavirus. But as NPR's Allison Aubrey reports, Pence says he has plans to continue campaigning.
The vice president's office says Pence has tested negative and is tested regularly, but the vice president is considered a close contact of Mark Short, his chief of staff, who has the virus. And per CDC guidance, close contacts should be tested in quarantine even if their initial test result is negative, given the incubation period is up to 14 days. But a spokesperson said Pence decided to keep his travel schedule in consultation with the White House medical unit and in accordance with the CDC guidance for essential personnel. Essential workers exposed to the virus should be closely monitored for symptoms and wear a mask when close to others. Allison Aubrey, NPR News.
But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer slammed Pence's decision to continue campaigning.
In the same breath with which they announced that Vice President Pence was exposed, the White House said that he would keep on campaigning, comparing campaigning work to the work that doctors and nurses and firefighters and police officers do.
He also told the Senate today not to congregate on the Senate floor tomorrow because Pence, as the president of the Senate, is expected to be present for Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination vote tomorrow. That is, the Senate today, in a rare Sunday session, voted to end debate on Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. NPR's Barbara Sprunt reports that move sets the stage for her nomination confirmation.
In a floor vote mostly along party lines, 51 Senate Republicans advanced President Trump's nominee to fill the seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The only Republicans voting against the cloture motion were Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. On Saturday, Murkowski said she would vote against moving the nomination forward procedurally, but would vote to confirm Barrett.
Well, I oppose the process that has led us to this point. I do not hold it against her as an individual who has navigated the gauntlet with grace, skill, and humility.
Barrett's final confirmation vote is expected Monday night. Barbara Sprunt, NPR News.
In Northern California, Pacific Gas and Electric has started cutting power to tens of thousands of residents to prevent the chance of sparking wildfires because of the extremely hot, dry, and windy conditions. PG&E says it's planning to cut power to thousands more. As many as 361,000 customers could be affected, and the shutoffs will remain in effect until late tonight or tomorrow. PG&E transmission lines sparked a Sonoma County fire last October that destroyed hundreds of homes and caused nearly 100,000 people to flee. This is NPR. At the Vatican, Pope Francis named several new cardinals, including the first African-American, Archbishop Wilton Gregory of Washington, D.C., who will be elevated to cardinal next month and who will also be eligible to participate in electing the next pope. NPR's Tom Jelton has more.
Archbishop Gregory's two predecessors in Washington were both cardinals, but Gregory's promotion is nonetheless historic because no African-American has ever held that position. Gregory is one of 13 priests from around the world chosen to be cardinals. He was appointed Washington Archbishop after serving in Atlanta. Though he has a reputation for being mild-mannered, Gregory has been more outspoken in this time of heightened racial awareness. He criticized President Trump's controversial photo op last spring in front of St. John's Episcopal Church across from the White House, saying the church was egregiously misused and manipulated. Tom Jelton, NPR News, Washington.
The one-day caseload of confirmed coronavirus cases in Italy has jumped 20,000, with more than a quarter of those in the Lombardy region. That area in the northern part of the country bore the brunt of the pandemic earlier this year. Italy's health minister says the latest pandemic crackdown, which includes closing restaurants early in the evening and also closing gyms for the next 30 days, is warranted to try to stem the number of infections. Italy has more than 525,000 confirmed cases of the virus, but the new close-down measures have drawn protests. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm Kat Hobson. I'm your host, or as my friend Rick says, the voice of fate. And I think that's funny. I tried to do his voice. That did not work. But anyway, I am so glad y'all are here. And if you were here for the first hour, I know you're glad you're here too. Because this is a fantastic show. I am so interested in the work that Mark has done. Oh, Mark Fiorentino is my guest tonight, and he is just amazing. He has done such a good job with making this stuff understandable. And the book is Master of Reality, super-relativity, and the unified field theory. But if you look under Master of Reality, you'll find him. He's on Amazon, and I'm pretty sure he's wherever books are sold. I'm going to say that is one of the prettiest book covers.
Thanks.
It's gorgeous.
It was done by a lady in Spain and her husband. I sought out somebody that did a particular type of artwork, and I had the design, the vision of it in my head. Actually, it was inspired by, I don't know if you remember, the Moody Blues, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor.
Yes.
Remember that album?
I do.
Look at that cover.
Well, I will, I'm going to have to go do that now.
Yeah, I knew someday I would use that. When I saw it, it made me vibrate. I says, this means something. This is important. I'm going to use this someday. And it finally, it was perfect. And she did a great job. And I'm very grateful. I have a lot of compliments on that cover.
Well, I can totally see that. It really is the use of color, the use of movement that really isn't visible, but you feel is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's cool.
Well, those things that the man is holding there, the wise man, that's the signature of God symbols. And so there's meaning in what he's showing the apprentice. Those are in my book. I designed them. It's a circle, triangle, and trefoil pattern. I talk about the trefoil pattern in the book. That's what's happening inside of the neutron and the proton, the movement of the quarks. The triangle represents the 3 dimensions of space, and the sphere is what happens when the quarks are spinning so rapidly in that trefoil pattern and precessing. It just basically turns the neutron and the proton into rotating spheres. So there's meaning behind in that picture.
Well, I love that picture, and I love what I've gotten through of the book. I apologize for not finishing it all the way, but I was having to go back a little bit here and there. It's good, and for people that haven't read it yet, get it. You will not regret that. Now, we were talking when we went to break about so many things. I had the question about CERN, and we have some other ones as well. Did you want to finish your thought, or are you ready to go back to questions, or what works for you?
I'm ready for questions.
Okay. Well, I have two different people who were at paranormal events last night, and they are slow with the questions today. But April is taking up their slack, so we're going back to April. But she had wondered if, we mentioned the time travel, and she was going to ask if your theory addressed that, especially since you mentioned the speed of light. And we kind of touched on that. She wants to know about your opinion on the Mandela effect.
Yeah, I talk about that in my book as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a symptom. If it's real, and I suspect it is, the Mandela effect is basically people remembering the past different than what it is now. Like, they remember Mandela dying in 1980 or something like that. They remember hearing his wife making a speech on television. Yet we go and look now, he didn't die until into the 2000s, and there is no speech. So that's how the Mandela effect gets started. And there's other things that people are noticing, texts, books, certain phrases have changed. There's different things going on.
Biblical texts, even.
Yeah. So they're saying, well, how could this happen? Somebody would have to go back in time and alter these things. And then, of course, everything would change in response. But apparently our memories, our consciousness is immune somewhat to that change in history. That's what seems to be happening as a possible explanation for why some people still are able, and in cases, a lot of people remember things differently than they are now. So if, in fact, and I do believe they are, and I'm strongly against this, the United States is using Stargates to go back in time and fix things. This is dangerous because you can pollute the timeline, corrupt it, not knowing what that might mean. And as well, what if multiple people gets this technology? Then are we going to start having time wars where people are going back and forth? No, I don't like the way you changed that. I'm going to change it this way. Oh, no, that they should be left alone. The past should just be left alone as it was. Don't try to improve it. Don't try to change it. It's just not right. It's not morally right. And so
it's not morally right because, then the people who have accurate memories are completely looked at like they're crazy. Right. And, I have, one of mine was a movie that Sinbad was in. And I remember it because I love Sinbad's stand-up. And when he was in a movie, I definitely went to see that. Mm-hmm. And now it shows Shaquille as the main character. And I'm like, that's not true. I mean, that is not a real thing. And the only reason I'm so certain is because the actor that was in it was Sinbad. So.
Oh, yeah.
And that was supposed to be in it and just disappeared from it. But, there's been other things too. I was a child of the 80s, 70s and 80s. And that seems to be the time period that has been affected the most.
That's interesting.
That I've noticed. So I'm not sure what they were trying to, what effect they were actually hoping for by doing that, what they were trying to eradicate. But it makes one ponder when it's so blatant.
Boy, it sounds like a good field of research for somebody that if they could put together all of these these changes to see if they could spot a pattern and maybe try to figure out what it is that they're trying to fix or alter for whatever reason. It's fascinating. It bothers me. I don't like, I'm I'm a purist. I don't like things like that being modified.
I don't either. And, I am not a person that rushes to judgment normally, or that thinks that, well, this is just ridiculous, and this is a grand conspiracy or whatever. But I do love where I live. I love my country. I love the people here, regardless of, anything other than, are you a good human? That's the only criteria that should matter. Right. And I get frustrated because it seems like so many people are trying to create divides. And I'm wondering if some of the things that we're seeing come out now are part of that. And that's a very scary thought. Maybe these are the things that they're trying to change. Like, I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but I'm not. Oh, wow. April said the lion laying down with the lamb concept in the Bible and Christianity is gone now.
Well, that's odd because I remember that too. Really?
Yeah, that would be odd because the only thing that is that there can be peace with anyone.
Right. Well, so, if those kind of things are happening, and let's assume whoever's in charge is evil, we're in for a big problem eventually, because what's going to happen is good will be called bad and bad will be called good. And
that's prophecy.
Yeah. And well, maybe that prophecy is coming true.
Maybe.
And yes, that's a very dangerous thing if whoever's in charge of and whoever's doing this has got a plan where they're trying to eradicate certain ideas and replace them with something much less good. Their intention is bad. This is of great concern. It's scary business. And I've never seen a Stargate. All I talk about in my book is how I think one can build one, and the only way it's possible to do that is use a system that uses metamaterials, a fractal lens, which can be used to accelerate photons beyond the speed of light. When they come out of that material, they create a high-frequency shock wave, electromagnetic shock wave, and that causes space to vibrate at a much higher frequency. So you could tune space like a radio to go into whatever dimension or time. And I would love to have physicists working on how to do that so you could predict what time and what space you could go. That would be fascinating for me to learn about. But
that would be fun.
Just the whole workings of it, how it works, how it really works, and what you can do with it, and how we can make it easy to go to other places in the universe. Instead of having to get in a starship, we just open a portal, step on the other side, and you're there. That's pretty damn convenient, especially if you need to get away from something that's dangerous or whatever. But the time travel thing does concern me greatly, so I'm learning some stuff as well tonight about that you're bringing up. It's fascinating.
Well, I just went to my friend Google, and Isaiah 65:25 is an Old Testament passage that is similar, but does not refer to the lion will lay down with the lamb. It says the wolf and the lamb shall graze together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. So that is something that, and it's called Never Thirsty, and it's all about telling people that it doesn't say what it
you're right. I remember that phrase from my childhood, the lion laying down with the lamb. It's been spoken many times. So I'm shocked. I'm shocked that it's not that now. So, it's a scary
there you go.
world.
You're right. It would be an interesting thing to, look at, because maybe that could be a project.
It could be for somebody, but if we should determine that that is in fact what's happening, how are we going to stop the people from doing it?
Sometimes you don't have to actively stop the people. Sometimes you just have to shine the light on what they're doing, and they scatter like cockroaches.
Yeah.
So, I'm in the South. We do have those outside on the deck periodically. So, I am just so fascinated by that, because she is actually a ancient text scholar, and I don't know how she has time to do anything. She has 7 sons, and they're all pretty young.
Wow.
I would be
7
sleeping
sons.
instead of researching, but that's just me.
Well, if the 7th son has a 7th son, isn't that supposed to mean something amazing?
I think so. Yeah.
I forget what that deal is there, but that's pretty neat.
It is pretty neat. But she's pretty wonderful, because she does not, she has patience. Well, we have to take a break. We have talked our way to the break. So we will be right back. Thank all of you for being here, because you know what? You're the reason we are. So we'll see you in just a bit.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson, your host. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio. I am so excited because this has been the best show, and we still have time to do even more greatness. So, woo! I am joined by my guest, Mark Fiorentino, and he is fantastic. This has been one of the more interesting shows, probably in the history of Fate. but he is the author of the book Master of Reality, and he has found the solution, basically, for unified field theory, the piece of work that Einstein left unfinished because the information was not what he expected it to be, not through any fault of his own or the universe, but through other people that were also trying to achieve goals. So, Mark, I have had so much fun with you, and you are dealing with these questions like a champ. So, too much fun. Are you there, Mark? Well, we hear him. I don't think he hears us. Let's see what I can do about that. Mark? Mark?
Yes.
There you are. I was just going on about the weather, and then I said, and thank you for putting up with all these questions and comments, and nothing. So I'm so glad you're there, because you know what? We are getting close to a blue moon and veils thinning and stuff, and I am just really and truly not one to, tolerate that.
Oh, okay.
I can control that, right? But yeah, we were having so much fun. We've talked about the Mandela effect. We've talked about CERN and the possibility of black holes. We've talked about the new particles that, they are saying they have developed actually being a result of, damaging the normal particles in the collisions. So you can't really bang something that hard and warp it or cause other damage to it and then say, oh, look, I've got this brand new toy. So where do you think that your book is going to take you with this? I know that you were talking about cons and things of that nature, but there's other things too. What do you see as being your ultimate goal with having written this?
Well, I'm trying to get the word out about the unified field theory solution, number one. And then, of course, the second thing is working with humanity. It's basically a kind of a humanitarian effort to develop Starship slipway bias drive technology for all people so that we can do things that we couldn't do before. Like I talk about in my book, just being able to get up in the morning, fly to Paris in like 5 or 10 minutes, have a nice breakfast, do some shopping, fly to Rome, have lunch, do a little more shopping, go home and be home and take a nap at 3 in the afternoon. You can't do that with airplanes now. It's just not fast enough. Build ambulances, super ambulances that can cut the time down to get to people that need help because they can fly straight from point A to point B. They don't have to go through traffic jams. They don't have to stop at stoplights. Boom, boom, they're there. You can take a patient from one hospital at one part of the country and move them to the other part of the country in a matter of just a few minutes. That's going to save lives. We could build transport systems that could move personnel and equipment across the ocean to a catastrophe somewhere and start helping people within the hour instead of days. There's so many things that can be done. So I would like to be able to help. I don't think the United States needs my help. I think they already have all this technology, but maybe some other countries that would like to build supercars, which I talk about in my book, and those kind of devices so that we can protect the Earth from catastrophes like asteroids and meteors and comets that might strike us. We could use the supercar technology or the drone technology to go out to that object way before it gets here and just, with hundreds of these things, land on it and push it away and protect the planet. These things need to happen, because if they don't happen, we're all in jeopardy. We could be wiped out any day, and these things can be averted. And I also talk about in my book using the drone technology, the slipwave drive drone technology, to build a sunshade to block the incoming light to a certain percentage and thwart the global warming problem, as well as it can be used to block cosmic rays and things of that nature that are coming off of the sun from solar prominences and stuff, so that we don't have massive failures with all these particles bombarding the atmosphere and causing all kinds of technology problems here on the Earth. So there's a lot of things that I could help the world do if we can just establish that there is anti-gravity technology and start building it, start working on it, start building reliable spaceships. That's the direction I'm hoping to move in. It's a challenging thing because I have to convince physicists that the model they're using, the quantum mechanics model, isn't right, and that's a huge task.
Well, that is a huge task, because they wouldn't be in the positions they are if they didn't think that they knew everything. And that's not belittling them. I mean,
no.
My cousin knew when he was 7 he was going to be a surgeon. People of science are definitely designed for that. And they don't give up their theories easily.
No, I'm quite literally going to have to drag them across the super relativity finish line, kicking and screaming. They're not going to want to go. But if I can succeed in this, humanity will advance in so many ways. Because once we get out there, we can explore the universe. We can go to a star that's 65 light years away and do it in about 15 minutes to maybe 45 minutes. And it has to be done that fast. We can't take hundreds of years to go to the next star, like Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years away.
Right.
You can't do that.
We have a map. Right? From Benny and Betty Hill. Betty Hill's map said, this is where you go. This is where they are. They gave her that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When they were abducted.
And we could do that. And we can meet these people from other places. We can exchange information. They could help us in the medical field. We could cure all kinds of diseases. There's so much to be gained, so much benefit that can happen. Exploring other worlds, learning new technologies, learning how to cure diseases, all these learning. Religion is going to be changed by this. It's going to be universalized, because we're going to find out that other people also know about God, and we're going to find out how they worship and the bigger picture. So we have to be prepared for that, but it's a good thing, because we're going to get to the truth. And there is a God, and there is a Jesus, and there is an afterlife, and these things are important. So part of what I'm doing is basically merging science and religion. And in the end, religion is going to supersede science.
Well, you know what? It already did when all of us showed up. So,
yeah.
It's okay.
It's an intelligent design.
I know that you had asked me about the NDEs, if I was familiar with NDEs. Right. And I told you that I was fortunate enough that Ray Moody was one of the first people I interviewed, and he is a wonderful, wonderful person. But you said that you noticed that there's a new age of man coming, and this information has been revealed through them, that there is a God, and God is a universal being and is personally involved with everyone.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you would expand on that a little bit.
Oh, well, okay, sure. That makes me a theist.
Yes.
Right? It's exactly what describes me. So that's a little bit different than Einstein, who just thought that God created the universe in the beginning, the Big Bang, whatever, and stepped back and that's it.
And
he's not
it.
involved.
Yeah,
he's not involved in any personal relationships with humans or anybody else. So I said, no, actually he is, and it's very involved with every personal relationship out there. So now he did create the universe with the Big Bang. It's probably in one of who knows how many cycles now. And I talk about the Big Bang in my book, The New Big Bang, and how I have the 3 chapters on the cosmology theory. So not only did God create all the laws of the universe, and I have on my blog, on my website, you can look at Rick Wendell's entry that I have where he describes in detail that God making it clear that he did design the universe. And so it is an intelligent design, and we need to get on board with that because we can learn a lot from the creator. So by going to NDEs and learning about from the source, you get the truth, and you get very valuable information. And I've done that in my research, which is different than ordinary physicists, which would never consider that kind of evidence. And there's loads of that evidence out there. There are a lot of people that say the same thing as Rick Wendell. Howard Storm is another one that describes that God created the universe and the laws of physics. And what we now also know from all these NDs, he's very involved in each and every individual on this planet. Everyone. There's no exceptions. Not only on this planet, but on all the other planets, because the universe is teeming with life. And we're just very naive at this point. We're still stuck in the Earth-centered paradigm, the human center of the universe, the Earth center. None of that is true. We are just a part of a bigger scheme. And NDEs and we human beings are co-creators now with God. This is what it's all about. This is the learning experience. And this is what we get. The thing of value in our lives is acquiring experience, whether it be good or bad, however you interpret it. All is of value. All is a gift. And if you can learn from it, it's an incredible gift. So I'm a theist. I'm saying God created the universe, and he's actively still involved in creating. He's creating other universes, and we as human beings are a part of that creation process now.
Well, if you go to any current literature on the subject, you will find that the universe is still expanding. Ergo, it is still being created. And I find that fascinating. Maybe he's trying to hit perfection. Because we're not it.
You haven't gotten to the later chapter in my book where I talk the cosmology. It certainly, I know what you talk about, the expansion, and it certainly does appear to be the case. But further research I was able to discover, and this is another place where I disagree with scientists, it just really gets better and better all the time. People like Hubble, great scientists who have determined that there was some increasing acceleration of galaxies that were further and further from us. It was a limited sample size, and he kind of fit the data so that worked. And he assumed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Again, a mistake.
Well, of course the human did that.
So the Hubble constant is kind of computed with that in mind. But what I've discovered, and it's all in my book, it's really quite involved because there's patterns, and I'm linking what I'm discovering here and relating it to something over there. So I suspected that if the universe was actually expanding now, the speed of light should be increasing because the speed of light is determined by space, the ether. Right. And if it's expanding, if it's stretching, then the tension is going to increase and the permeability and the permittivity are going to drop. So I should be seeing a speed increase. Right. But when I did the research and I discovered this guy named Barry Setterfield, it's in my book, I talk about him, he discovered that over the centuries, the speed of light has been slowing. And every time we measure it, a few years later, it's just a little bit slower. And that happened all the way up until around 1970, 1980 time frame, when then suddenly speed of light is constant, just like Einstein said. And so something was wrong. I got suspicious. Because, wait a minute, either it's slowing down, speeding up, or something's going on here. So I went in and I continued to research about the speed of light and how we measure it. And what I come to find out is that basically there were scientists who really didn't like that they couldn't lock down the speed of light back in the 40s and 50s. I think there was a man named Raymond Burge, highly respected chairman of the physics department at the University of California. He was the head of the atomic constants. And the speed of light is considered an atomic constant. And it was decreasing steadily until 1940 when an article was written by him. So we're getting into like a controversy here. A conspiracy of sorts. And in August of 1940, he put out this article and said, basically, this paper is written on request. And at this time, on request, a belief in any significant variability of the constants of nature is fatal to the spirit of science. As science is now understood, emphasis his, these words from this man, for whatever reason he wrote them, shut down the debate on the speed of light. So at that time, they just declared it a number. And they say, from now on, it's going to be this number. And I don't want to hear this about the speed of light slowing down. And then a decade or so later, they changed the way they measure the speed of light. Instead of measuring a distance, the golden meter or the plutonium or whatever it is, palladium, whatever it's made out of, meter, using that measurement and timing that, they just said, look, set up the equipment, get close to the number we're saying, set it to that number. Just tweak it in and out, the mirrors, whatever you're measuring, until you get that number. That's where you start from. From now on, you're always going to get that number, and that's how you're going to measure, and that's the way everybody does it now. So they've covered up the fact that the speed of light is slowing down. And so now, from that date on, the measurement is this number, and they always get it because they tune the equipment to get that number.
Oh,
so
unbelievable.
Yeah, this is really bad science, and I'm bothered by this.
That's not science.
That's real bad science, and that's the way they measure this. No, they're measuring the meter is what they're doing. The length of the meter is slowly going to shrink to keep that number steady. So who's really hey, did you notice like 100 years ago the meter was like a centimeter longer than it is now? They're not going to notice. They're not checking. And, they've declared it this number, and that's it. So now we're missing that in the actuality, space is collapsing. And sure enough, I said, okay, fine. All right. According to this measurement, I'm going to go with what Barry says here. There's something going on. The speed of light is slowing down. I better look for what the explanation of the galaxies that are supposedly accelerating away from each other. And what I discovered, their acceleration isn't being caused by dark energy or space expanding. The acceleration is being caused by something we know about since Newton, gravity. What is really happening is those galaxies in those outer perimeter areas are all falling toward black holes. Our galaxy, the Lanakia group, along with several hundred galaxies. They're not moving away from each other. They're actually coming together. Andromeda and Milky Way are going to collide someday. That's kind of opposite of what Hubble's saying. How come they're in our local area, all the galaxies are coming together? Well, we're moving, as astronomers have claimed, we're moving towards something called the Great Attractor. It's very big, it's very dark, and we're moving at an ever-increasing rate. We're accelerating toward it, just like all the other galaxies. So, in fact, what I'm saying in my book, the universe is in the collapse phase, not the expansion phase. Okay. So we're in for something, and I talk about that in great detail because it's important. We're in no danger now. I mean, it's going to take billions of years to hit the Great Extractor, but eventually that's going to happen and things are going to end. But I would suspect our sun burns out before then, and if we don't have slipway bias drive technology, if we can't get off this planet, of course, the human race will be doomed. So it's a necessity at some point. We have to bilocate on some other planet out of this system somewhere.
We need to hit a break right quick. Everybody, we will be right back. Thank you for being here, and y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, and this is our final segment. We've got at least another hour or two of conversation on these topics, but I wanted to turn you on to something. A friend of mine in 2017 wrote a book called Going Interstellar, Problems First, and it deals with, transportation, being able to get, something that would get you to the level of interstellar travel as far as propulsion systems. I have a lot of people I know who that's their job. They work on developing propulsion systems, and they're geniuses, every one of them, because that's what they grew up being told, and that's what they go and do. And some of them have done it for 40 or 50 years. Some of them have done it for 10 years. And they're all outside the box thinkers. But when Tom wrote this book, he was just like, well, you can't. I said, well, there's got to be something. Maybe we can slingshot our way. There's got to be something. And he was like, there's not. So I'm very proud to say that I wrote the foreword for that book, but it was the first time anybody had asked me to do something like that. I was so flattered. But it was a book that I was reading with a different mindset, because I do try to find ways. I do know that these methods are being researched. I do know that what you're saying makes so much more sense as far as being able to get out of here.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you said, at some point, we're going to have to leave this planet. I don't think anybody else is going to welcome us to theirs. We're going to have to solve our own problems. You know, we're going to have to live together as a humanity, and we're going to have to take care of our Earth.
Right.
We're going to have to be, at some point, we truly are going to have to be an international community. Right. And, you know, when we get to the point that race, religion, and nationality doesn't matter, just think how far we will have advanced towards that goal. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like that's not something that's going to be far off in the future. So when you say that a new age of man is coming, it's really, I think so. And you know, I think that what you have written and shared is a lot more than just an interesting book. It is basically a roadmap of the different things that need to be accomplished. And in order for those things to be accomplished, science is going to have to accept the fact that someone outside their fold has an idea that can help save everyone.
That's the basic thing. Yeah, that's what's happening. I'm on a team. You know, I'm on the same team that the NDE people. I have never had an NDE, but I place myself on their team because we share spiritual things and psychic things, and of course I have all the science that I go with, and this is kind of my mission. This is my job to bring about a change for the better. And so there is a new age of man, but it's still uncertain how that's going to come about. You know, according to what I've read from NDEs, there's a battle going on between good and evil on the other side, and it's spilling into this world, and we're seeing it in the news every day. So if we lose the battle, if evil wins, whoever you want to define that evil to be, but if the real true evil wins that battle, then there'll be a second coming. Yes. And the power of God will fix everything. So the evil ultimately may win the battle, but they'll lose the war. On the other hand, if I and the NDE people are being called upon to help raise this consciousness like you were just talking about, basically to live by the golden rule that Jesus basically taught us 2,000 years ago, if we can win that battle now, then that tragic catastrophe can be averted.
Yes, it can.
But it's up to us. Us humans have free will and choice. If we choose wisely, we'll be okay. If we don't choose wisely, we'll still all be okay, but there's going to be a lot of suffering until we get back to being okay again.
Yeah.
Because things are going to have to be cleaned up. It's just a natural law of the universe. One shouldn't expect that if one walks off a cliff that they're not going to fall to their death. Gravity is a universal law. It applies to everyone. So don't think you can just walk off a cliff and not die because it doesn't apply to you. That's kind of what we're kind of getting into right now. And you must obey the universal laws, and the universal laws of goodness and compassion and kindness, and we must get back on that path. If we get on that path, things are going to be good. Things are going to be great.
You can do all of those things, and you can exhibit all of those things, and still have self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Caring for others doesn't mean you give up caring for yourself or
Absolutely.
your family. That's what part of being a global citizen evolves around.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree.
You take care of yourself and you take care of others. So I'm curious, and you're going to have to tell me because we're going to have another conversation after a while, and I'm going to ask you this question, which is, how are the scientists who are secular dealing with your faith? Because that's not generally something that goes well. So I'm going to be curious of your experience with that.
Well, do I answer that now or the next time we meet?
You got 5 minutes. You can do that.
Oh, okay. I have worked with one in the book who's basically claims to be an agnostic, very brilliant mathematician who worked with a lady who had an NDE who I searched for in order to find the signature of God. Now, what's interesting about this lady who had this near-death experience, she's an agnostic now, but she works with this, famous mathematician and another scientist. So she has been influenced by them. And now she questions, apparently, her own NDE. So I have more faith in their NDE than she does. But so my one experience so far with a person who's, secular, I guess, is been okay. I mean, we respect each other's opinion, but I left that group because I was trying to convince them about the thing that she saw, what she calls the pattern, what it really meant, and how to use it to solve the unified field theory problem. So since we had this break in philosophy, I decided, well, I'm not going to make any more progress here. If you don't believe in God, you don't believe in what you saw, you don't believe that God actually told you this is the way I solve for the problem of mass, how energy creates mass. If you don't believe the things that you saw that he said, how can I help you? So I moved on. So that's been my one experience with somebody so far. The more of that, I'm sure, is going to come in the future when the knowledge of my book gets out there. Hopefully, I get a bigger audience and more knowledge of what I'm saying becomes available out there, and they start to have to deal with me, and we'll see how that goes. All I know is I got to hold a steady course and keep doing as best I can to get a new awareness out there and hopefully inspire some people to come back to the intelligent design theory and to God, because that's real. God is real.
Absolutely.
And we all find out about it no matter what we believe when we die. There's no escaping it. If you really don't want to believe in God, you can ask the near-death people who were atheists what they found. It's not pleasant.
Well, right. I have not done that. I know. But,
yeah.
Well, we are out of time. And I hate that because I have so many more questions of my own. But I have enjoyed you. Thank you for giving me your time. I know 2 hours is such a chunk, and I appreciate every minute of it.
Oh, thank you.
I've just had a great time with you.
Oh, thank you. I had a great time as well. This is all very fun stuff, very interesting stuff to talk about, and I'm glad I'm meeting people that enjoy this subject. It's a pretty bold, big subject, but I'm enjoying your enthusiasm and your open-mindedness. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, but that's just how I'm made. I love physics, which is really funny because I am not a physicist, but it is.
That's true for me too.
Well, there you go. But I read and I'm inquisitive, and I enjoy getting to talk to people like you who know more than I do about topics, and I learn. What a great way to do things, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So, well, our chat says thank you, and that it was a great show. One says fantastic show and an interesting topic. I agree. So come back on Wednesday. I will be here. And, you know, I am so thankful for every one of y'all. Tomorrow night we are doing a rebroadcast of Denise Pride Moore's Paranormal Pride. Wednesday, I will be here, and I am so excited. It is the Halloween show, so I'm going to keep that guest under my hat a little bit longer because it's going to be great. And then and behind me we will have Teal Gray with her Para Mysteries. I love her show. And then Thursday will be the Full Spectrum Project. And Friday, of course, will be the rebroadcast of Shelley's, I believe it's last week's rebroadcast. She has got so much going on, y'all. Better check out that old Paulding Jail. It's fantastic. But thank you all. Whether you're listening live or through the podcast experience, you're the reason we do this. We'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night, everyone.